Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Arnaz. Welcome so much. Welcome to Queen Bees. I am so happy to share with you our guest speaker for today, who is Raheela Hussain. I'm going to give you a brief bio about Raheela, and then I'm going to let her take over. And I'd also like for you guys to be more active. Let's have an interactive session. Any questions you have, anything you want to share with Raheela along the way, please feel free to, turn on your cameras and unmute. You could raise your hand if we have a lot of people talking at once. That way we'll just keep it organized and then also have, an interactive session with Raheela. So thank you once again for joining our session. Raheela is a clinical therapist specializing in mental health by providing emotional and mental counseling. Currently, she is the Director of Social Services at MCGP, working as a social worker and a clinical therapist. Raheela is also a community speaker, providing psychoeducation on mental health. On a personal note, I have known Raheela for a long time. I've seen her within the community, I've seen her at events, and I know her through her work in photography. So please help me to welcome Raheela to Queen Bees.
Hello, everyone. Assalamualaikum. How's everyone?
Assalamu alaikum. So Raheela, we'll get started. So with that, I'm going to ask you to, briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing these days.
All right. Just a little brief introduction. I'm actually a licensed social worker. I have worked, I was working on my clinical hours. So I finally got my clinical hours done. I'm waiting for the state to approve my clinical license, and then God knows, the state of Georgia takes forever.
Right.
So that's that. I got my master's degree from Rutgers, graduated in 2017. And since then, I've been working in the field. Little experience at work. I worked at an outpatient. I worked in hospitals. I worked in school settings. I've done crisis. I had done work with people with schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. So somehow life took its toll. This position at the MCGP Muslim Center came about. I said, okay, let me look into that position. And as a way to give back to the community.
Absolutely.
Like, how can I help my people, I wouldn't say my people, my community,
yeah,
and broaden the experience that I have and give back.
Yeah.
And that's where I became social worker and a clinical therapist at the mosque. We're the only mosque in the state of Jersey who has this position that has a licensed social worker on board.
That's great.
I do feel proud that they took
absolutely. I can't imagine how that's so helpful for the community to know somebody is on, like in there that can help them with any type of any kind of issues or anything, that they can just go to somebody, right? So that's really important.
It is, but it's also set back, but we'll go into that later on in the conversation.
Sure.
So how did I become a social worker? Long story short, I have a bachelor degree in computer science. Artificial intelligence to human intelligence it was a drastic change. It all started with my father, who was actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So taking care of him and his illness. So I was trying to find support and resources. What can I do to get the best care for my father? So one thing led to another. Next, I was like, I love this field. Connecting human, with another human program. So that's when I started looking at social work programs and somehow I loved how Rutgers has a program for that. I went back to school after so many years. There was a big gap from my bachelor degree to my graduate school. Having a family, I was like, can I do this? And I was like, I got to do this. If I don't do it now, I'll never get my master's degree. So I went back, took 3 years for my master's, and I did it. So it was a long journey, and it's been a long journey to get to this point. So So that's that about me.
That's amazing. That's really great how, like, just taking care of your dad led you into this path, right? Which is great because now it's not just your dad, you're also using these skills to now help the community at large, which is amazing.
Yeah. So I feel like my personal experience, can be beneficial. It's like I've seen people, so many families struggle with Alzheimer's and, depression and
Yeah.
like the respite care. Like, we don't realize there's out there, these programs out there. So taking my personal experience and putting to knowledge and say, give it back and say, there is out there that you're not alone in this situation. There's
Yeah.
programs out there, and we should capitalize this, get all the support that you can. You shouldn't fight this battle alone.
Exactly. Absolutely. And we will definitely get into more of the resources that are available later on. That is one of my questions. So I wanted to ask you, I know it's a very broad question, but what are some like general areas of concern that you have seen within our communities? Like, what are some things that people come to you, in general terms? Like, what are some areas that you see within our communities, and how do you like, kind of provide that guidance to these people? Like, what do they do? What's their action plan?
Well, one of the biggest concerns I've seen that is definitely a taboo is, oh my God, mental health. They must be crazy, or they seeing a psychiatrist, like there's something wrong with them mentally.
Mhm.
But that's the biggest fear, that I've seen. And then if they do decide to come and seek help for mental health, oh, what if people know? What if people will find out? That
Mhm.
whole judgmental thought process, like they're gonna judge me or my family that, they're mentally unstable. The biggest common word is I hear, uh, I must be crazy, or people going to think I'm crazy.
Mhm.
Why do you see psychiatrists for what? And another comment I hear, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to see you. Guess what? You're probably the most the most help that you need.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's the biggest, the the top layer. I see
Mhm.
the misconception that they have that, and then fearful, like when, fortunately, unfortunately, you want to look at that. My office is inside of the mosque. And so many people come in and go, and there's like, I don't want to be seen, that I'm in your office.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, and one thing good about the pandemic came out was the telehealth. Prior to the pandemic, telehealth wasn't allowed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insurance weren't allowing that. So now is, I give that option. If you're not comfortable people seeing you, utilize the telehealth.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So there's privacy. Another misconception is, um, like people will know, or you'll talk about them, or you'll disclose my
Mm.
secrets to people.
Yeah.
So just like going to a doctor, HIPAA law is in effect. We also have that. The HIPAA law is in effect. We're not allowed to disclose any information to anybody.
Yeah.
If I were to see you in public area, I'm not even allowed to acknowledge you in public area that you are to see. Being seen by me or a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
But that would break the confidential, the HIPAA law, and I could, myself and the agency can get lawsuit.
Mhm.
So just educating these basic stuff to the community, that it helps. I seen a difference in the thought process.
Yeah.
So these are just at the tip of it, and then
Yeah, I think something that you really hit on is like having that education up front is, kind of breaking down those stereotypes in advance. And I think that will probably lead more people to kind of seek help or seek guidance and just to come to you like freely, like without an appointment, say, hey, Raheela, something is happening, right? So just to have that open conversation and dialogue with you, I think would definitely help the community. And I think more
yeah.
people should do that. I think that's such a great, incentive for the community to have you at the mosque, but then also to have that availability through telehealth
Oh
visits.
yeah.
That's amazing.
And a lot of time you don't have to be struggling. with mental health, sometimes you need a neutral person perspective how to deal with situations. I have clients that had conflicts with their parent or their loved ones or their husband or their spouse, and they just need a third person view and say, because I don't have emotional ties to that person, and I will give them my personal view. This is how could handle this. And sometimes you need a third person's perspective to help you guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. So what are some actions that women can take to help reduce some of the mental stress? So let's like maybe take it back a notch. Like, what are some things where you feel that women can really, where women are expressing like, hey, I'm really stressed. I have a lot going on in my life, right? And then like to come to you and say like, hey, so what can I do? Like what's the type of advice you would give somebody who comes to you?
All right. So first thing is the stress that they're dealing with. What is a stress? Like, are you stressed about, if you're with your spouse or just, working and managing home? Or what is a stress? Defining the stress. What is it, first of all?
Mhm.
And then, what are they doing to manage it? Like it's like a trickle down. What is the stress that they're encountering? And then they take, okay, what are you talking about? What are you managing it? What coping skills are you utilizing? What time off that, what strategy are you attacking
Mhm.
the stress? If you're acting, attacking in a negative way, you are going to get overwhelmed. So
Mhm.
like in my personal situations is there was one time when I worked at Oaks Integrated, I was dealing with 35 to 40 patients in a week. And I was dealing with so much stress. One of them, Arnaz can back me up, is I use photography as a coping skill.
Mhm.
So that's my way of releasing my stress and say, you know what, I need to see the happy side of the world.
Yeah.
I, Monday to Friday, I'm already dealing with life, stress. How can I release my frustration? So I do a lot of photography and I
Mhm.
go out and capture happiness. So my advice is like when these females do come in, what are they doing to deal with the stress? What is the stress and how they're dealing with it? And what coping skills are they doing to release the stress
Mhm.
in a positive way?
Absolutely. No, I totally agree to that. And, as I mentioned to you that for me, this having this queen bees is like me coping with stress, right? So I have young kids, I work, I have a house to run, but at the end of the day, I still enjoy, I'll be up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning trying to put together, like the flyers and like inviting people, because that brings me joy. That's something that I enjoy doing personally, aside from my like normal day-to-day, responsibilities. So that's really great. I would open it up to the floor too. Like if anybody wants to talk about how they deal with stress, I think it's important for women to learn from each other. So I can, if you don't mind, I would open it up to the floor. I see a lot of you have joined. Anybody wants to chime in, please feel free.
I love an interactive floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had a question about depression. I am currently working with another coworker who is Indian Desi, who recently her father died. I want to say like a few months ago, and it was a shocking death. She went into a deep depression and really she did not seek help at all. And it's really affecting her work performance. I'm actually her boss. And so it's affecting her work performance. It's affecting how she communicates with the rest of the team. But because of her Pakistani Indian background, she really has not sought help. And how do you tell someone that you need to get help and you are clinically depressed, whether it's, see someone or, medications is a big deal in our culture. Like, oh my God, someone's on antidepressants or something like that. They don't want to be labeled. How do you tell someone that you're really depressed and you need to get help when they believe that they probably don't need the help?
Mhm. Great
Well,
question.
It is definitely a good question. One approach I would say is a lot of companies do have short-term, um, like short-term leave of absence medically that they can get counseling. And they usually are 6 to 8 weeks long. So the HR has to approach them to this female and say, we're noticing your work related is being affected due to the fact that you lost your father. I suggest that you seek this. It's only 6 to 8 weeks long. They have short term, and how your company is set up, she can get paid or not paid. We don't know that. The HR would answer that, but the HR has to, you can approach the HR and let it come through them, because that would be more appropriate legally, to come in from the HR. And she has to seek help, because if she doesn't seek help now, it's going to get worse. Her clinical depression is going to get worse. It seems like she needs medication for that. And
Oh, I just want to say hi, assalamu alaikum to everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Sonia. And, the thing is with our Desi culture or Pakistani Indian culture, the thing is, I feel like the way we were raised, even I was born here, or even people who came back from, the country and, and here and was raised here in the States, we all are dealing with some sort of trauma. I really believe that. I've dealt with I know so many people, and it's definitely was not treated, whatever they went through with their childhood. It could be anything, yelling, even hitting. I just feel like most of our cultural people have some sort of trauma in the background. And how do you deal with these kind of with a bunch of us and with the negativity? Because it gets worse within time and with older age. And then you deal with, as a person, as me, who I see it, I don't know, sometimes you don't want to be rude, or how do you deal with so much negativity and toxic people around you then?
that's, it's a difficult, it depends on who are those people. If it's work related, like co-workers, learning how to set boundaries. That's the biggest challenge, is setting boundaries with them and setting boundaries with yourself.
Oh, it's so hard though. So hard, even with, it's very hard. Family, friends, community, everything. It's, you see these people and, it's hard because it is. Yeah, it's challenging.
It is challenging. It's just learning what's in your control and what is not in your control.
Yeah.
The question is, anybody would, I'm going to ask everybody, what is in your control?
Yeah.
Is your behavior and your thoughts and process is the number one that's in your control. How you react and how do you speak to them is in your control. But how they react and how they talk is not in your control. So that's the whole thing. If somebody is saying, crossing their boundaries, you do not, it takes time. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's just challenging yourself as like, do I need to react to this? Do I need to respond to her or him? Do I need to react? Sometimes, it's easier said than done, but it takes time. No reaction is the best reaction.
Oh, I agree. Or not, I agree. Or staying silent.
Silent. And then, there's a lot of hadiths on those, but I don't want to get into the Islamic.
No, exactly. The religion. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think the best way is to, that's how I'm dealing, just to stay silent and just move along. But you deal with it a lot though. It's hard. And I wish this was, I wish people would know that, oh, maybe, self-reflect on them and know, listen, maybe there's a problem within me. Maybe I really do need counseling. Maybe I do need to see, a psychologist, because it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's not wrong to go speak to someone that's outside, because, the way they look at things, a friend cannot tell you, or a family member cannot. I don't care how close you're with the friend, you know, person who has, you know, a clinical degree, they can tell you what's going on. They can tell you what's triggered, what's really triggering you.
It is. We get so much training that we pick up signs already, like
Yeah.
their posture, their behavior, and we learned that. And sometimes, like I've seen people with their eyes, like, okay, this person came in crying, and they're like, no, I wasn't crying. I was like, oh, trust me, you were crying. We pick up signs right away. And back to the boundaries is learning. Like one of my goal this year, saying no to negative stuff or negative eating. I love junk food. So I have to remind myself, no, I'm not going to have this. No, I'm not going to do this. If it's all in the cognitive, we use a lot of CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. Say, if you keep saying, like when we were little, we do a lot of repetition. 4 + 4 is 8. 4 + 4 is 8. Till your
Yeah.
brain takes that. So you have to say, I'm not going to react. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to react. And your brain starts to think that way, and your body starts to react that way. I'm not going to react. So it's just a lot of training. Any behavior takes 30 days to implement that behavior. So think about it, it's like, okay, about the average of 30 days. So in 2 weeks, you would see a difference. If you keep it consistently, you have to be consistent of changing your behavior. If not, it gets hard. So
I really like the idea of having a clinical expert like at the mosque. Like I think the fact that MCGP recognized that there was a need for that, I think that's a really big step, right? That they've taken.
100%.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I
Agreed.
feel like,
Agreed.
somebody wouldn't go out. Like I think that's probably the most where we see people is during events, right? So it's like you see that somebody is available, they know Raheela, sits, she has an office there, and then they can approach you. So do you feel that because you're there, the more people from our community are actually approaching you? Do you feel like you have an open door policy? Like how does it work when you're actually there?
in the beginning, when I was first hired, I was hired in September of, was it 21? I'm so off with the years with the pandemic. So in the beginning, everybody was hesitant to walk into my office.
Yeah.
I kind of left it somewhat open, a policy that if I'm in the office, I will leave the door open. They've come in and walk and talk.
Yeah.
And then if they need to go into like something into details and say, you know what, I need more than a 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I need an hour talk. All right, let's make an appointment. So I do have that open policy where they can come in, but I don't want, it's like not too many walk-ins, I try to like set limits on that. Like you can't, it's like I have all these people scheduled up to talk, just to be mindful. It's like, yes, you can come in just to chit chat and say, I'm here, but I also need more than 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So
Yeah. That's great. That's really good that now you're like setting appointments, right? So from a point where people were probably hesitant to come see you, and now you're at a point where they are actually coming and, in an organized fashion and meeting with you. That's really good.
it is. And then on the community I work with, for some reason, when they go into a doctor office, they will follow all the protocols of
Yeah.
boundary. And then when
good.
I'm at the mosque, they forget, they have trouble with boundaries. They feel like, oh, they can come to me whenever they want. They'll text me at 8 o'clock in the night, or like this, somebody texted me at 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't understand this at all, so I have to remind them every day, let's discuss it during the weekdays. This is not the time to talk about your, like 12 o'clock at night. This is not the time for me to talk to you.
Yeah.
I have a certain time, you have to follow that. So setting boundaries in the community is challenging, but it's good at the same time. They understand that. So.
Yeah. I mean, what about like, in that same scenario where you have like, you'll notice somebody who's very active throughout the day, they're busy, they're happy, right? But as soon as they get that alone time is when that depression kicks in, and when they start, feeling the sadness and stuff. How, like, I mean, is it just medication? Is there anything else that can, accompany the medication that would help people kind of, even those who struggle and they live alone, right? It's hard for them more so than people who live with family.
It is. So when I first see the client in the early stages of interaction or conversations, I ask them create a schedule for them. Block out if you're working, okay, 9 to 5, you Monday through Friday, block those hours. If you have children, after school programs, you're a soccer mom, my son has soccer matches at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, block those out. So at that time, okay, then you realize, okay, Wednesday at 6 o'clock, I have a time for myself. So you're preparing yourself that you don't fall into you don't relapse.
Mhm.
Okay, what can I do Wednesday at 6 from 6 to 8? I know that this is a long time. What can I do to keep myself occupied?
Mhm.
So I don't fall into depression or anxiety or feeling loneliness or having a panic attack. So a lot of time I ask them, what skills do you like? What coping skills do you like to do? Can you take a dance class, read a book, or take a walk, or do something that would help you utilize your time. So you don't get, oh my God, like stage of panic at all. So you're preparing you utilizing your time in an efficient way.
Yeah. Are there any type of resources or daytime activities that you're familiar with within our community, that women can actually go to kind of keep themselves busy? Any kind of resources online that just kind of do like a mental health check, anything that you're familiar with that you want to share?
Nothing with mental health, but there's a lot of activities. It's like everything is coming back open now. I would say the last 6 to 8 months, everybody's, reopening, doing a lot of in-person without the mask. So stuff
Yeah.
like that, I have a lot of resources, but mental health related, I don't. Everything's related to mental health. They'll say, let's do hiking. That's going to help you with your depression. You get oxygen in your brain that helps the dopamine the chemicals in your brain.
Yeah.
Doing, like pottery bond, like
Mhm.
making those ceramic bowls or something.
Mhm.
It helps to calm your anxiety down. So some way or somehow they're related to mental health. So
Yeah.
even
That's
painting.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think having that other activity skill set that you enjoy doing on your own, I think would definitely help. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the biggest thing I always say, have a good support network, having good friends.
Absolutely.
I went out with friends last night and they were the best support I can have.
Oh, that's
So,
nice.
and they're on this screen right now. So
Yeah, I know who they are.
thank you, you both of.
I know who they are. When is the right time to seek professional help? So if you obviously can gauge when somebody walks in through the door, when they're, at the point where you can actually still guide them versus like, okay, no, you definitely need to talk to somebody and start setting appointments or something, right? Like, so when is the right time to seek professional help?
There's no exact moment. Whenever you feel, you know what, I need help. I need to talk to someone. That's when, you say, this is it. Every person is different. Every individual situation is different. The sooner you go, the better you are. You'll get all the help. So there's no exact specific time.
Yeah.
Even me as a clinical therapist, we also recommend to seek counseling ourselves. So I also get counseling myself. So I see a therapist every 2 weeks. I've been in, you know, as a therapist, seeking therapy, it's been like 4 years I've been in therapy myself.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, I mean, just being in that field, especially for doctors or for yourself, being around people who have the kind of like anxiety or depression, it must take a toll on you too, right? Like
It
where
does.
yeah.
It does. I'm going to give you examples. When I worked in Oaks, I used to get calls saying, I am about to jump off the 7th floor and I'm in a meeting. I get these type of calls. I'm on the phone with the crisis team telling them, get over there. She's about to jump off the 7th floor. And I'm on the phone with her, telling her not to jump, guiding her. So, and then, and then I get I get a call, one of your client just committed, suicide, So it takes a toll off on our physical body and mental. And some days I would crash at home and say, I need some time out for myself. I just need to block out. And so because of these type of scenarios, I seek therapy. But fortunately, I haven't dealt with these type of situations at the mosque. Thank God, it's like it hasn't been that severe at that.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. That is, it's challenging, right? Because when you're in that field, these are the type of clients you're faced with. So it's not always like a feel good, happy story, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. So I would open it up to the floor. If anybody wants to say anything, any comments, you have any questions. Raheela wanted this to be an interactive session. So please feel free to unmute and share any type of experience, any questions you may have for her.
I had a
Assalamu alaikum.
question.
This is Sister Jermaine.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jermaine.
No, go ahead.
We're fighting for you, Raheela.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Raheela. I just wanted to jump in and say, great presentation. And I definitely see that the fact that, you were given the opportunity to be unofficially in the masjid as a resource, especially that, in our communities, Middle Eastern, Asian communities, there's a huge stigma in approaching mental health issues. So I think by having such a position, it's pretty much saying out loud that this is normal, this is not something you need to shy away from, and there's a resource right there within reach. So I think that's a huge step, and I hope that one day we see more of this across our communities. And in terms of dealing with anxiety and stress, I resonate with you that any activity that is desirable to the client, which serves as a distraction from, the thoughts that could be hammering down their heads, is something that we call it like positive intelligence in psychology terms, in terms of trying to increase positivity. And a way to do that is to pretty much train or rewire your brain to step away from that in a stressful environment and go altogether somewhere else. And I think it requires training, it requires practice, and definitely encouraging people to find their de-stressors is beneficial. Thank you.
It is. Just to chime off that, a lot of clients that I see for counseling, I started this from January 1st. Every month, do a self-care challenge. Whether it's 10 of them, like a bingo sheet, it looks like a bingo. And whether you want to do 30 days, 10 days, 10, whatever, how many numbers you want. And say, for me, I love to read books, but I haven't had the time to read books. That's my challenge, is reading a book, going for a walk, at least an hour a week, like a minimum of 1 hour.
Yeah.
So it's challenging myself. These are things that once you put it down in paper, handwrite it, never type it, because it's not effective. Handwrite it, and then you become obligated. It becomes accountability, and it helps to better yourself as a human being.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. I mean, having these activities and also, challenging yourself, setting these small goals leading up to longer term goals. I think those are definitely beneficial, but it's just getting to that point where you're like, I need to do this for myself. I think that's once you're in that position, then I think it makes the, process easier.
Oh yeah. If anybody wants, they can always reach out, and I can send all these coping skills, challenges to them, and they can do it.
Absolutely. That would be great if you could share that with us, and I can share it with the group.
Okay. Yes.
Any other comments, questions?
Farba had a comment.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a question in terms of someone who is going through depression, and as someone who's like a support system to them, they sometimes shut you out. And so as someone who's in the support system category, not actively going through depression, what is the best way to deal with people who are going through depression when they say they shut you out, or they don't want you to be there, or leave me alone type of scenario, what is the best way? Do you leave them alone? Do you give them that time? Or what is the best strategy to deal with someone who has depression?
Yes and no, meaning I do leave them alone, but I always tell them, I'm here for you. I'm a phone call away. I am, if you ever need me, it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, reach out to me. If you feel not comfortable, reach out to me, but here's a list, who you can reach out to. Just giving them comforting words and say, look, I'm here. I don't, I'm not sure what you're what you're going through, but I will back off. But I just want to let you know I'm here for you. And, if you want, I can reach out to you, XYZ date and time for you. And then that way you're respecting their wishes, but at the same time, you're there for them. So you want to be in the behind the picture for them and say, I want to be walking side by side with you and give you the support. And, just whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here. So just saying those type of words, it helps. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like, not to be completely away from the situation, but at least just, being there and showing that support goes a long way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great question. Anyone else have a question? Malika Baji, go ahead. Or is it Malika Baji or Malika? I'm not sure which one it is.
Malika Rizvi.
Hey, Malika, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Arnaz?
Good, good.
Long time. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for organizing this. I think this is one of the very helpful topic in today's world. And thank you, Arnaz and Raheela, both of you, for great session. So my question is, I just feel like, for depression, communication is a big part to contribute. I think people are not communicating very well these days. There has been a trend, I need my privacy, which is fine, but then privacy should not go to a level where everything is becoming private and they are not even talking what they're supposed to talk. And since they're keeping so much inside, that's turning into stress, and that ultimately leads to a depression. So my question is, how can we improve the communication skills within the families, and how can we make people open up to talk enough, and how can we build those kind of trustworthy relationship where the other person is feeling comfortable enough to share their feelings, and then they don't lead up with the depression? So that's my question.
It takes time to utilize effective communication. There's a healthy way and there's an unhealthy way. If they start yelling or screaming, obviously it's unhealthy. And saying, okay, what can we do to redirect our communication, and ask them, okay, what is it that you want from this situation? What are you looking for? It would help me to understand that, so I can give you a better support. Just asking them, say, how can we be mindful? How using a lot of I statement, how can I help you in this situation? And the blaming game has to, that is a trigger for a lot of people. Well, you're doing this, you're doing that, you should be doing this. That's the wrong approach, because then they get very defensive, and that defensive it cycles into a lot of hatred or anger. So turning around, how can I help you in this situation? Because I would love to be there for you. I would love to help you out. I really want to be there for you. Just saying because you're not focusing on their fault, you're just focusing on the support. And it changes the strategy in the approach. And they will say, well, she's not blaming me for anything. She just want to help me out. So just using those type of term changes the scenario. I hope that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the message and the tone, everything in this case has to be just the right to open up people. And I think that's a good point. Instead of that negativity and blaming it on others, it's better to just show them support and express that. So that's a good point. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's actually really good. I totally agree, like changing that approach and, you know, like then you don't have like, you know, the you, and it's more about I and how can I be there to support you. That's great. Anything else anybody would like to add? We have about a few more minutes left. So any other comments, anything you'd like to add, Raheela, before we end our session?
I do have an Instagram page, Chat with Raheela. So I do a lot of like updating on mental health. So if anybody's on Instagram, please follow that page, and then it will be useful because I put so many I just created this page about a few weeks ago, so I update as much I can. So
I'm already following, so I'll tell you, she has a lot of good things, and a lot of her sessions are on, you know, in person. And do you do a lot of like online sessions also for ladies to join?
like individual sessions or group sessions?
Like group sessions?
I'm actually in the process of doing one. We started a group session at the Muslim Center,
Mm-hmm.
but we're gonna kind of postpone and like put it on hold because Ramadan is starting next month.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're gonna step back, and then come May, we'll restart it again.
that would be great. Yeah. Yeah, and if there's like any ideas, any sort of topics ladies would like to cover, you know, to also help Raheela
yeah.
kind of touch upon those areas that, you know, are of concern, feel free to reach out to her through her IG page.
And I do every so often we'll do a workshop at the Muslim Center. Like I've done youth mental health, marriages. The very first one, if you go on YouTube, the Muslim Center of Greater Princeton, we did on mental health in the Muslim community. So in that workshop, we really talks about what mental health is and what can we do as a Muslim, community to get support. We're actually going to be talking about is independent of domestic violence. So we are going to be addressing that because there is a big need for this topic right now.
Absolutely. So once we have that link, I can definitely share that with our Queen Bees for your YouTube. Thank you so much for this session. This was amazing. I'm so glad we were able to connect with you and to have you come on Queen Bees to present. And I think more so like just having that open forum, I think definitely helps to engage with the audience. So thank you so much for that, Raheela.
Thank you.
Any last minute requests or comments? If not, thank you all so much. And everybody's saying thank you to you on our chat. And I just want to say on February 25th, we do have another Queen Bee session. It is on career in marketing with Ishma Heather. So tune in for that. I will definitely send the link around. And thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Nafis.
Thank you.